Hey, this is Jack, and this video is called the number one sign that he likes you. So let's get right into this because this is a super popular thing that people search for, or the videos get traction on YouTube. Signs that he likes you, right? 5 signs, 7 signs, 9 signs, 27.5 signs that he likes you. So I thought, why don't we just go really simple and give you the number one sign, because the rest of it can sometimes be noise. The number one sign that he really likes you is that he consistently wants to spend time with you and support you and be in relationship with you. That's it. That's the sign. You may say, well, isn't that a bit further down the road, Jack? Like, I'm talking about the early signs that he might be interested. You know, all sorts of guys are going to be attracted to you, right? Whether that guy is someone that's going to want to be in relationship with you over a period of time is a completely different question. And that's really what nearly all of you that are coming to this video are interested in. You might find it romantic to decode the little signs, right? He doesn't want to leave on an evening. He's kind of prolonging the time with you. He wants to spend time with you when you're doing innocuous things. He wants to help you lift the groceries from your car. Right? All of those things are trumped by, does he want to spend time with you consistently over time, get to know you, be in relationship with you, and support you, right? That's a very particular orientation for someone to take to you. And the reason that I'm saying don't pay attention to these micro signs is that you could easily get lost in trying to decode them and creating a narrative that isn't actually true of what exists, right? So let's for a moment, and it might sound unromantic, but let's for a moment be a scientist, and rather than trying to connect the dots between a whole series of subtle things, let's actually just run an experiment for 3 months and notice, does this guy want to show up over 3 months and more to be with you, connected to you, make things happen with you, and support you, right? If you have to spend all your time connecting the dots to create a narrative that he might like you, I think you've already lost the game to some extent, right? Or you're already at risk of investing in something that isn't going to be worth investing in, or creating a narrative that doesn't exist, or getting your heart hurt. So I'm sometimes willing to dial down on a little bit of the romantic dot connecting in service of what is actually here, and you may have been making it a little bit more complicated. Now, one of the things that encourages us to make it complicated is you might say, well, there's no guy that's been showing up in that way, right? And if that's the reality, that might just be what it is, and it might be really hard to be with that reality, right? But part of us maturing as adults is that as much as possible, we try and get with the program of what is actually happening in our lives, right? So if that's actually happening, then you might want to make some decisions about meeting more men. You might want to make some decisions about taking certain men out of your field because they've already proved that they're not going to show up in this way, right? What we call clearing your field. You might have to get in more relationship with your own frustration and impatience, because for most of us, that is a deep and ongoing spiritual practice, right? Because things don't happen always on our own timelines, right? Some of the best things in life don't happen on our own timelines. So we have to learn how to surrender the control and the need to know when something is going to happen in service of it's going to happen in its right timing, if it happens at all. And most of us don't want to be with the ambiguity and the uncertainty of, I don't know if this guy likes me. I don't know whether a guy's going to come into my life that I'm going to want to spend time with, right? Rather than being okay whether that happens or not. And when it does happen, if it happens, you're actually able to notice it and pay attention, right? So it's kind of like keep it as simple as possible, but we don't want to oversimplify. So as simple as possible is, okay, if we just take these 3 proxies, he wants to support me, he wants to spend time with me, and he wants to relate with me, right? He wants to be in a deeper connection, a heart connection, a more vulnerable connection. If those 3 things are happening over time, it probably means that he wants to be in a relationship with you. And certainly if that's happening over 3 and 6 months, and if it's happening that long and you don't have clarity, you can ask, hey, I like spending time with you. I think you like spending time with me. I would like to hear, where do I stand with you? Do you know? Right? So you get a little bit more okay with having the direct conversation, because if the guy wants to be in that relationship with you, he won't mind the direct conversation, and probably he might have revealed his hand already. It's the guy that's like, I don't really know, and a guy has a right not to know, So I'm not making that completely wrong. I'm just saying that might be his true reality. But if that is his true reality, isn't it useful for you to also share that reality? Right? We use this phrase, getting in shared reality, co-creating shared reality, weaving shared reality. They can sound like fancy phrases, but it sort of means like we get to be able to share our truth with one another, and so that we're not in confusion as to where the other person stands. If where the other person stands is in confusion, like they don't really know, then you also get to be at choice as to what your orientation back to that is. Sometimes it feels in right action for you to say, okay, I feel clear that I want some clarity in due course, but actually letting this roll for 1-3 months is okay for me. I'm actually okay with that ambiguity. For some of you, that won't actually be okay, right? You are wanting someone that comes with a higher degree of clarity, or it's just clear to you that that isn't what you're going for, and that might be your truth, right? For a lot of us, we're in this discernment, do I cut something off or not, based upon could it become something serious, right? And if we've had 3 or 6 months to discover that, what we could at least probably say is it's if they're not clear that they want to be in relationship, is that it's not serious in this season, right? We do then get the opportunity to let it go and see if it wants to come back in another season, right? Sometimes that happens. But in this season, we don't have the clarity, and we acknowledge that that is actually what's happening. So rather than getting stuck on kind of micro signs and dot connections and narrative creation, I want to invite you to be a gross scientist. And by that, I don't mean a scientist that smells bad. I mean a scientist that's noting gross, not subtle signs. Gross signs like, okay, he's kind of spent time with me 4 days out of 7 for the last 6 weeks. That's a meaningful amount of time. Okay, he supports me. Like, he actually wants to support me. He wants to help me with the shopping. He wants to brainstorm my career. He wants to listen when I'm having a blue moment. Right? If a guy never has any interest in that, he's probably not partner material for you. And again, none of this is actually going to predict whether this goes a short, medium, or long term, right? What we're trying to do is discern, is this someone I can be in a partnership relationship? Or is it something that's actually not that? It's casual, it's lovership, it's companionship, it's nothing, it's cameo, it's drop-off guy, it's mergy guy. There's a whole palette here of options. And there's this kind of option that's called, are we going to do some kind of partnership? Whether that's a short amount of time, we're going to learn something together, or this long amount of time, we're going to build a life together. That's further down the line to be seen. What the attention is on the moment, or at this moment, is this actually a relationship that has somewhere that it can go, right? Or is it just stillborn, so to speak, right? It's a non-starter. It's actually never going to breathe. It's never going to take shape. And when that's true, that's 2 things. 1, where you can invest time and energy that is precious, that you don't want to invest. And 2, it's often where you get hurt because you're having to make a narrative out of it. You're actually perhaps showing up even harder than you should have because the lifting, think of like a seesaw or a teeter-totter. I think I've got my US speak right. It's now sounding like those potato things. What are they called? Tartars? Tater tops? I don't know. It's so confusing, right? Anyway, the point is, you think of something that does this. If you're doing all the lifting from your end, right, their end's kind of down. They're not doing any of the lifting, right? And generally, we want a system that has some degree of balance in it. So if you're having to work really hard to make something happen, that's good information. We want you to stop, slow down, and notice that that's happening. Notice what your true feeling about that is. There may be some frustration, exhaustion. There may be some self-doubt. There may even be some sadness. Like, why do I have to work so hard at this? Right? Now, that's not to say that relationship and making relationships work and even not making them work can be a lot of work. But if you have to do all the lifting to get into the relationship, I don't think that's the guy that you want to be in relationship with. Right? We want him to come and show some muscle, right? We want him to actually be putting some effort in to making something happen with you. But if he is, and he's showing up, and he's supporting you, and he wants to relate with you at an emotional and intimate level, that's the number 1 sign that he actually wants to be in a relationship with you. Most of the other stuff is noise and has the potential to be false narrative. So, if you like what I'm pinning up here, I also have a checklist that can support you in this process. It's called the He's Your Guy checklist. It's just 9 steps, super quick, easy. It helps me do some of the lifting for you. I'll just be the first link beneath this video. Click that, also puts you on my mailing list. You'll be in touch with anything that I do. Courses, workshops, you'll be the first to hear. I'd love to have you there. And if you haven't, give us a like, you've watched this far, and subscribe to the channel. I release at least 2 videos every week on personal growth, dating, authenticity, and these kind of topics. I'd love to have you with us. And thanks for being here. I'm Jack.